This video will save you $21,000 in 2025. The average rent is an insane $1,748 per month right now. So if you can find a way to live without paying it, you will save almost exactly $21,000 over the course of a year. Young people are waking up and rightfully becoming increasingly frustrated with the absolute insane rental market right now. And as a result, they're turning to alternative homeless lifestyles to avoid paying it. You see, not every homeless person is your stereotypical unhygienic bearded old guy who hasn't showered in years. There are people living in vans with high-tech gaming setups, living in RVs, and even living in a Japanese internet cafe for over 5 years. We fully researched all the new and creative ways young people are living without paying these insane, ridiculous rent prices, and we've put them all together in this comprehensive tier list video for you. Let's get this show on the road. Number 1. Living in a Japanese internet cafe. Let's kick things off with the most interesting option I found on the list that probably not many of you have heard of. If you like traveling, Asian food, anime, and high-end gaming PCs, you can buy a one-way ticket to Japan and live in a Japanese internet cafe. Japanese internet cafes initially started out as just a place gamers could go to spend a few bucks to play their favorite games for a few hours here and there. Eventually, people started spending the entire night there, then spending weeks, months, and even years until the internet cafes themselves have now fully embraced their status as an alternative living space. They even have names for people living here for extended periods of time. They call them internet cafe refugees. Net cafe refugees pay around $20 per night for a small private room with a bed, some pillows and blankets, and a high-end gaming PC. This particular one in Tokyo even gives you free unlimited rice and curry to eat. So if you're especially pinched on finances, you can save even more money on food by just eating their free rice and curry. As already mentioned, these internet cafes have fully embraced themselves as alternative living spaces, and as a result, they're equipped with showers, bathrooms, some even have their own convenience stores. Everything you need to live there, even on a long-term basis. So, for the tier list placement, we're going to put the Japanese internet cafe as our one and only S tier pick, especially if you're a young single guy and you don't really need much to survive. This has just about everything you need to be happy. A roof over your head, a place to sleep, and the high-end gaming PC is just an insane bonus that comes along with it that you're just not going to get with any of these other options. I mean, what more could you want as a young guy in your 20s? There are, however, a lot of logistical issues that come along with this if you're not Japanese. Starting with the obvious that you have to buy yourself a plane ticket to Japan in the first place, which isn't cheap. You have to immerse yourself in a totally new culture and location. Worst of all, you're only allowed to stay in Japan for up to 90 days without a visa. If you want to stay longer than that, you have to either work, study, or marry a Japanese girl. As someone who spent my own 20s traveling myself to escape the system, I know just how nightmarish and exhausting all these visa logistics can be. So as I was considering these factors, I was thinking about bumping the Japanese internet cafe down to the A or B tier, but I realized these are more just general issues that arise from moving to foreign countries and not so much problems with the Japanese internet cafe itself. Now, it's important to understand that this tier list placement is based on my own subjective opinion, and you don't have to take my word as the last word on any of these. Tier list placements will also vary greatly based on your own individual circumstances. For example, this option is great if you're an introverted gamer, but not so much if you're more extroverted and need that social connection. Keep this in mind throughout the video. Number 2, van life. Van life has absolutely surged in popularity the last few years, with van life influencers such as Ryan Toomey and former Marvel filmmaker Trent Arrant amassing hundreds of thousands of views. This involves converting a van into a livable space and driving around the country stealth camping. It actually surprised me just how much you can do within the space of a van. These guys manage to do everything from cooking Korean barbecue to having an epic gaming setup. The main issue when it comes to van life is there's a pretty hefty barrier to entry cost. It can cost anywhere from between $10,000 to $30,000 to convert a van into a livable van. It'll be around the $10K range if you learn to do it yourself, and the $30K range if you pay to get it done professionally. This, of course, isn't even factoring the cost of buying the van itself. Assuming you have enough saved up to somehow afford it, however, van life can be a very decent option. Now, before I continue, I have to give a very important legal disclaimer. When it comes to van life or any of the vehicle-related options I'm about to present to you, every place is going to have different rules about where you can legally camp/park. It is your responsibility to properly research the laws so that you don't get in trouble with the cops. I've included a link in the description with a great video guide on how to do exactly that. So, according to van life blogs on the internet, van life typically costs between $1,500 to $2,000 to sustain. This includes everything from your food to gas to paid campsites and gym memberships, as that's how van lifers typically shower. Now, if you're especially frugal, van life can be as cheap as $800 a month. This is obviously a huge upgrade over the insane modern day $2,000 a month rent prices we have to pay these days, if you ask me. And the lifestyle itself actually seems quite good. I mean, you can get a very cozy setup for sleeping, cooking, and even for gaming. So we're going to go ahead and put van life in the B tier, only because the barrier to entry is quite high and there's quite a hefty initial investment involved. If you can, however, manage to somehow scrape enough funds to pull it off, I would absolutely strongly consider it. Also, the van life influencer trend still seems to be going strong right now, so you can also consider starting your own YouTube channel, documenting your journey, and eventually building enough of a following to sustain your more frugal existence. Option 3, RV life. This is essentially an upgraded, more spacious, but also more expensive version of van life. Think of it sort of as a cousin to van life. The extra space an RV provides over a van allows you to have a bathroom, a kitchen, and an actual living space. And believe it or not, the initial cost of buying an RV can actually be cheaper than a van. This is because with a van, you have to pay to convert it, whereas an RV is already a vehicle built and meant to be a living space. Now, the initial cost of buying an RV can vary. Cheap budget versions can cost as little as $14,000, while the most expensive luxury ones can cost close to $1 million. But here's the catch. While initial costs can be cheaper than a van, the monthly recurring costs of living in an RV are way more expensive. Gas prices are obviously going to be way higher for a van than an RV, and unlike vans where you can stealth camp in pretty much anywhere for free, there's no way you're going to be able to park an RV in the middle of a city and not attract loads of unwanted attention. You won't be stuck paying campsite fees, which is kind of its own form of rent. Campsites typically charge you around $700 to $2,000 per month, which means you're not that far off from paying these insane modern day rent prices for living in an apartment anyways. Because of all these factors, I'm going to put RV life in the C tier. For most young people, it's just not a very practical option, and you're going to end up paying close to what you'd pay for rent anyways. RVs are also a very rapidly depreciating asset, so if you change your mind for whatever reason, you're not going to be able to just sell it later for nearly as much as you bought it for. Number 4, converting your car into a small micro camper. Now, this is an option that a lot of you watching could actually do and afford even right now, and that is converting your car into a small micro camper. This can be done for as little as $20, believe it or not. If you have a small hatchback car, all you gotta do is fold down the seats, add some foam for a mattress, and voila, you have yourself a comfortable place to sleep. You can use this to stealth camp or just hit the road in van life fashion and see incredible sights, all while never paying rent. Now, it's important to note that while this is obviously a significant cheaper and easier option to set up than van life or an RV, there is one major obvious drawback with this, and that is that it is not a livable space at all. You will have to find something to do during the day, such as traveling around and exploring. It's pretty much just a place where you can sleep at night. Now, if you have a slightly bigger budget of a few $1,000s or so, you can get a bigger car and include things like a stove and running water to make it slightly more livable. But in general, you won't be able to do cool things like gaming or watching TV the same way you could do in a van or an RV. You don't really have a place to live per se, just a place to sleep, which can get really uncomfortable. Because of all these factors, we're going to be putting this option into the C tier. There are definitely huge advantages in the sense that it's very cheap and easy to set up. In fact, it's something pretty much anyone can do if they already have a car, but the sheer discomfort of not having an actual living space has to be a huge drawback. Number 5, volunteering. I'm going to tell you something that will absolutely blow your mind. You don't need money to survive. I know it's hard to believe given how materialistic society is today, but money is actually a relatively recent invention in the context of human history. Plenty of societies existed and thrived without money, and the way they did that was through bartering. Basically, I'll do this in exchange for that. With how much of a scam our financial system is, and inflation absolutely destroying the value of our hard-earned money, a return to bartering is a viable adaptation in modern times. Instead of paying $2,000 per month for ever-increasing rent prices, what if you could instead just offer to do 20 hours per week of chill work in exchange for free accommodation? Well, that will definitely help you save a lot of time and money. I would know, because unlike all the other options on the list, I actually personally did this one myself for almost a decade. You can use websites like Workaway and Hostel Jobs to find various opportunities all over the world where you can offer 20 to 30 per hours of work in exchange for free rent and sometimes even free food. There are a wide variety of volunteer tasks you can choose from helping a family take care of kids to farm work to working in youth hostels overseas. You just gotta find which one suits you best and go for it. I personally had a lot of great experiences in all my years volunteering, but it's important to note that it does come with several major drawbacks. For one, it's not a permanent solution. Most places won't let you volunteer for over 3 months. They're not meant to be permanent destinations, just quick pit stops. This means that you're going to be in a stressful, continuous cycle of trying to find one place after the next. There's going to be a ton of traveling and moving around, and so if you're not someone who enjoys that, I would absolutely consider other options on this list first. But the benefits are just incredible as well. I mean, you get to meet new people, travel the world, make a difference. The social life is absolutely incredible. And I think traveling is just overall a great way for young people to experience adventure and enjoy their youth. It certainly was for me anyways. Now, doing a tier list placement for this one is particularly tricky because it's so heavily dependent on the individual. For example, for me personally, I would put it in the A tier because I'm personally a spontaneous, adventurous person who likes to travel. But for someone who's more introverted and just wants to be left alone, this lifestyle would probably be absolute nightmare F tier. All things considered, I'd probably put it in the B tier, but remember, this is just my personal opinion, and you have to decide for yourself if it suits your personality and circumstances. Number 6, hostels overseas. I mentioned volunteering in hostels in our previous option, but you could also simply choose to pay and live in the hostel as well. There are plenty of hostels all over the world where you can stay in for as cheap as $10 per night in some of the most beautiful and incredible cities. This hostel in the Czech Republic, for example, only costs about $12 per night and is situated in beautiful Old Town Prague. This adds up to only about $360 per month, which is a tiny small fraction of the insane $2,000 per month rent prices you're paying in the West. So, if you have a remote job or some online side hustle, or even just a decent amount of savings set aside, this is something I would definitely consider. The social life in hostels are absolutely incredible as well, as you get to meet similar-minded travelers from all over the world who all have interesting stories to tell. Now, the downside to living in a hostel is that you don't really get much privacy. You're generally going to be sharing a room with 4 to 8 other people. It's something like a college dormitory. People also snore at night, which can get really annoying. But I would say this is something you eventually get used to over time. I'm going to put living in hostels in the A tier. It's not an ideal solution, and there is no ideal solution. I mean, this is a homeless tier list after all, so obviously nothing is going to be the absolute perfect solution. But the prices are very affordable, the social life and atmosphere is great, traveling the world is a wonderful experience for young people, and all in all, I think it has way more pros than cons. Definitely consider this if you have some sort of remote income where you can pull in around $1,000 a month, as that will more than completely cover your living expenses with this lifestyle. So this wraps up our Gen Z homeless lifestyle tier list. Hopefully after watching this video, you have a much better idea on how you can adapt to the insane world we live in today and avoid paying these absurd, ridiculous rent prices. Now, if you want to truly commit to one of these alternative lifestyles, you're also likely going to need some sort of online side hustle income to sustain yourself. Lucky for you, we made a whole nother tier list video covering exactly that, and you can check it out right here.